Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Veritus Group's webinar, The Hidden Problem That's Costing Nonprofits Thousands or maybe Millions in Revenue. I'm Amy Chapman, and I'm Director of Client Engagement here at Veritus. And I'm really happy to be supporting Jeff behind the scenes today as he presents on this topic. And before we get rolling on that, I want to make sure that you all are aware of a few details about our webinar system. And hi, see a few notes there. Hello, everyone. Keep adding where you are, and we'll appreciate that. Because of the number of you joining us today, we aren't able to take your questions out loud, but they're super important to us. So please do put them in the Q&A box. And my role here in the background will be checking on those and making sure that we have time at the end of the presentation for Jeff to work through them live. And so we really do want any and all questions throughout this time to be put in the Q&A box. We have an international audience joining us today. Welcome to you all. I want you to note that you can turn on translated captions and select your preferred language in your Zoom settings. So be sure to do that. And then finally, you all who are with us today will be receiving this webinar link and the slide deck sent to your email tomorrow. So please look out for that. I think that covers our initial details, Jeff. I will pass it over to you now.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited that you're here, and I love doing this webinar because it's one of my favorite to talk about because of the impact of what we're going to talk about on your mid and major gift program is huge. So let's get into it then. All right, I'm Jeff Schreifels, and I'm principal and owner of Veritus Group. And I've been doing this for a long time, and hopefully all those years of the work that we've been doing will lend itself to shedding some light into mid and major gifts, what we're seeing out there in donor files, and how important it is to look at data to help drive your strategy and understand your donors' behavior. So here are some of the objectives for today. There's three major ones. We're going to discuss some of the significant problems that have caused the nonprofit sector that I feel has lost their way. We want to understand the areas that you need to focus on with your data so that you can begin assessing your donor file to see the potential within your organization. And then learn about some tools that you can use to catch those red flags within your donor file. So with that, just before we get going, I want to talk a little bit about Veritus Group in case some of you don't know who we are. And I will say we are just absolutely passionate about relationship-based fundraising. All grounded, however, in a data-driven approach, meaning data drives the strategy. Data tells us where we're going, what is going on with your donors. And that drives all of our strategy for mid, major, and planned giving. And so we'll talk about a lot about the data today. Our strategy and approach to major gifts and mid-level is based on years of working with nonprofits, hundreds of them. And what we've done over that time is we've analyzed millions of donor records. We've consulted with hundreds of clients. We've had thousands of people go through our Veritus Group Academy, and we're working with thousands of fundraisers and nonprofit leaders all over the world. And all of that, we've been able to create our consulting and our training sessions based on all the things that we've learned. So everything I'm going to talk to you about today is from all the work that we've done over the years with nonprofits. And so I'm feeling pretty confident that what we're going to say today, and if you take that to heart, you're going to see some major improvements in how you do your mid and major gift programs. A few of the clients that we've worked with, you can see they're all over the place. From hospitals to domestic to international to all kinds of different organizations, all have embraced the Veritus way to doing major gifts. And it's been amazing to see the growth in their programs over time. So with that, let's get this going. All right. I feel like we've lost our way a bit. Here are some of the problems that I see in our sector around mid and major gifts. Many mid, major, and plan giving programs I feel are rudderless, and they're really in need of leadership. Nonprofits are struggling with record high donor value attrition. And I'm going to talk about what that means. But it's not just donor attrition, which has always been a problem. And we've talked about it all the time. You go to any fundraising conference, they'll talk about donor retention or donor attrition. And how can we stop the attrition from donors? Well, we also need to talk about donor value attrition. Fundraising talent, we all know. Frontline fundraisers are moving around to different organizations, it seems like every 15 to 18 months. This is after survey, this is what's happening. And why is this happening? People are not happy at their current job. Why is that? What is going on? Why can't we keep good people? There's a lack of real understanding around mid and major gift and plan giving programs within nonprofit leadership. And finally, we as a sector have really lost our way and we've forgotten our mission. And here's what I mean. Most nonprofits are really good at what they're doing to help change the world, which they think, okay, this is our mission to do X, Y, and Z that is going to help change the world. And they're really good at that. But they also fail to see that there's more to their mission than just the thing they're doing every day to change the world. Their mission also includes their staff. It also includes donors and the community that they're helping. And many nonprofits forget those three, focus on that one thing, and realize all of this is just to get that done. So that's why we see nonprofit fundraisers leaving every 15 to 18 months, because the nonprofit has lost their way, that their mission is also about the health of their staff, training their staff, paying them well, all kinds of, they just lost that staff is just supposed to, make as little as possible, work as much as possible to get anything done because, we got this mission to take care of. And then, of course, you've heard, how many nonprofits look at their donors as just basically ATM machines. They're a means to an end, rather than being a part of the mission, which would mean that we're all about helping that donor find joy in their giving. And if we did that, how would our fundraising program look different? And then, of course, the community in which we're serving. Have we really included them into the mission? Many times we don't. It's like, hey, we're going to do this for you, rather than listening to the community or the needs of what is happening, and are we actually working with them in partnership? So those are some of the problems I see in the nonprofit space. Now, I want to talk about attrition. Donor attrition and donor value attrition. Many of you know what donor attrition is. A donor gives 1 year and they stop giving the next year. They're now lapsed. That's a donor going away. That's what we would say is donor attrition. Donor value attrition could be either a donor gives 1 year and they stop giving, or they give less. But we look at what's the revenue ramifications of that. Many organizations don't look at this. They look at donor attrition and they say, well, from acquisition, we only retain about 30% of new donors. And then once we get donors, really overall, we only retain about half of our donors. So when you put it in that way, there's no emotion around it, because it's just like, yeah, we lose half of our donors. We'd love to keep more, but we lose them every year. Excuse me. Donor value attrition is more emotional. And why is it? Because you put a dollar figure to it. So if 1 year you got $2 million from donors and the next year $1 million, and you lost $1 million 1 year to the next from the same donors, that is more emotional. That makes you think. And here's an example. So let's focus on view one. This is a mid-major gift program from an organization from donors who are giving $1,000 cumulative in a year. And in year one, this organization brought in 2.5 million. The next year, overall, this organization brought in 3.1. So a 21% increase. Now, if you're the executive director or development director, you're feeling pretty good about a 21% increase year over year, right? You should all feel good about a 21% increase. However, what we like to do at Veritus is peel the onion back a bit and look at the donors that gave in year one. What did those same donors give in year two? And you can see they went from 2.5 to 1.3 million in revenue. They lost 49% of their value in just 1 year. The only reason this overall program grew is that new donors came in at almost 1.8 million and masked the behavior of the donors that gave in year one. And this is what's happening in donor files everywhere. So most nonprofit leaders are not, they're only looking at their growth from view one. Okay, we grew, whether it's 21%, 10%, whatever that percentage is. If it's a growth, they're feeling pretty good about it. What they don't know is the value attrition of the donors who gave last year, the year before that, the year before that. And there's a lot of value attrition going on. As you can see, 49% in 1 year, that's huge. Here's another way that we look at it. This is from one portfolio of 150 donors. In year one, this portfolio had a value of $1.9 million. By year three, the same donors were only giving $584,000, or they lost almost 70% of their value overall from year one to year three. So there's a lot of attrition going on, a lot of value attrition going on. And when we went to the organization, we said, okay, like donor number 4, they gave $60,000 in year one and they stopped giving. What happened? And they couldn't tell us the story of what happened. If you have a managed portfolio of 150 donors, you should know why, from year to year, why a donor is giving more, giving the same, or giving less. You should know the reason for that. And unfortunately, when we presented this information, no one knew the answer to why this portfolio went from 1.9 to 584,000. And that's a problem. Because in major gifts, you should know exactly why donors are giving more, giving less, or staying the same. Okay, here's another example. This organization in year one brought in $20 million overall for their mid and major gift program. By year three, it was 23.4 million. So over those 3 years, a 17% increase. So not bad. And when we presented this is the first thing we showed, the executive director was feeling pretty good about this overall growth path. Then we broke it down by individuals and organization by giving year. So we looked at the first year, those donors gave 10.5 million. By the end of the year three, those same donors were giving now only 7.5. The next class of donors that hit the 1,000 Q mark, in year two, they gave 3.1 million. And by the second year, those same donors only gave 1.7 million, or we lost 44% of their value. Now, when you add in the individuals and the organizations and what they've lost in those 3 years, it totaled $9.1 million in revenue. Now remember, this organization overall grew by 17% from year one to year three. Yet, over that same time period, they lost $9.1 million to value attrition. So rightly so, the CEO was blown away. Never had seen anything like this before. And then he asked a really important question. What if we could at least recoup half of that value that we've lost? What would it take? What would we need to do in order to retain this value rather than it going away year over year? If you could retain half, that's like $4.6 million dollars in revenue. That's another 4.6 million for their programs. That's how the executive director was thinking, and he was right. I mean, that's exactly how you'd have to look at this. Other findings we saw in their file, we saw a lot of year over year giving the same amount. So just scores of donors giving the same amount or close to the same amount every year. And we see this a lot in files, especially if you have a sustainer program or a membership program, you see a lot of this of donors giving the same amount. It could be 2,000. We see like 25,000 a year, every year, same amount. Never wavers. They're great loyal donors, but when I see something like this in a donor file, I know one thing for sure. No one is asking this donor to do more than this. And I also know that there are a lot of those donors that are giving the same amount every year that could give a whole lot more. They have capacity beyond what they're giving to you. You're just not asking for it. You're not really getting to know that donor and understand what are those donors' passions and interests as it relates to all the programs and projects you have so that you could deliver an exciting, dynamic, personalized offer specifically to the donor. And that's not happening here with these donors. So why is this happening? Here's one big reason why. Follow me in the orange boxes here, because this is what a donor is saying to us. They're saying, hey, you made me aware of a problem and you asked me to help. And you said if I helped, it would make a difference. So I believed you and I gave what I could, right? That's what we do. We're trying to put out offers that will inspire the donor to give. There's a need out there. We want them to help alleviate that need. And we said, if you did this, it's going to help make a difference. The problem is we're really good at that, asking for the money. What we're not good at is after they give the gift, telling them how they made an impact with their gift. And most nonprofits do a very poor job of this. And when the donor doesn't know what happened with their gift, they go and they find someone else that will do that. So they go somewhere else. This is a big reason why we have such high donor and donor value attrition going on in our files. Now, if you're an organization that does a great job of reporting back to a donor, thanking them promptly, and then reporting back the impact of their gift, then you close that loop on that gift and they'll want to help again. So if you're doing that, great. But I do know from working in this industry for so long that most nonprofits are doing a poor job with this. And again, it goes back to what I was talking about, mission. If you don't think your donors are not part of your mission, then you're going to treat them like crap. And that's what we're doing. And so this is the loop that we want to close. Here's some things to keep an eye on. Because if you're serious about keeping your donors and keeping and raising the revenue year over year, which I know you are, here's some things that you need to consider. So the number of donors who give the same gift amount annually. This is an area for opportunity within your donor file. Look at how many donors are giving the same amount every year. And then ask yourself, why is this happening? You're tracking new issues. You're tracking issues with new money. So remember the chart I was talking about when we were looking at donors that gave last year, and then what are the same donors giving this year? We're not looking at that. We're looking at it just bottom line, which means we're taking into account the new donors that are coming into the file. We have too much focus on securing new money from new donors. Instead of really focusing on the donors we have, we're out there trying to find these new donors. And then systems that don't support reporting and impact. You're going to hear this from me again and again. You have to have a system in place in your organization on how to report back your impact. So that means working with communications, that means working with program, finance, all of those areas. And if you're a one person shop, that's another, you have control over it then, that you can really take the time to make sure that that happens. Next, I want to show you what a healthy pipeline should be like. It's from acquisition all the way to they make their final legacy gift. We want to make it as easy as possible for a donor to give to their heart's content. Unfortunately, we create barriers along the way of this pipeline to prevent donors from doing this. Now, we don't do this on purpose. We want donors to, in our hearts, we do. We want donors to give what they want to give. Unfortunately, we create these barriers. It could be a strategic barrier like not having a mid-level program or not having a major gift program that's disciplined. It could mean you don't put enough expense and investment into new donor acquisition. So you don't have new donors coming into the pipeline very much. There's all kinds of barriers that we put up that prevent donors from moving through and coming through this pipeline. And we see it a lot. It could be internal things that you do, like you have this membership program. And what once was a strategy to bring in new donors and cultivate them has turned into its own department. And so you have a membership team, membership department separate from the other development team that's only focused on building up their membership. Well, membership are donors. These are donors that you've used membership as a strategy to bring them in. And what happens is you develop KPIs around membership program that prevents, in a sense, donors from moving up because the KPIs are all wired around keeping membership growing. I mean, I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had with where there is fighting with membership and development because they don't want to give up donors because they'll lose revenue and that'll make them look bad. Now, that sounds ridiculous, but this is happening all the time. We're all in these silos and we're not playing together. We're not working as a team, but that's what happens. Now, the big one I mentioned on strategy is mid-level. Excuse me. So mid-level, many nonprofits don't have a mid-level program. They have a direct response program, and they might have a fledgling major gift program, or they've got a really big major gift program, and they don't really have much on the donor acquisition side. And so mid-level can be a big link between the cultivation, the direct response donors, the donors that have come through that way, and major gifts. Many times what we see in the mid-level area is all these clogs, and there'll be different clogs at different cum levels, but one area of the cum level is around the $2,000 to $2,499 area and the $25,000 to $4,099 area. That's an area we see a lot with clogs in the major gift side. So we're going to show you that to see what it looks like. So what do nonprofits need to do? Again, they need to regularly and promptly report back on impact. They need to be committed to learning the donors' passions and interests as it relates to all the great projects and programs you have. We have to be able to build trust between the organization and the donor. That only happens when you're developing relationships with those donors. And then you want to connect that donor directly to your mission. That's what it's all about. That's what relationship fundraising is all about. All right, now what I want to do is go out of this PowerPoint and I want to show you an actual assessment and look at some data. Okay, this is an organization. It was a large organization, but it had a very small mid and major gift program. So in other words, they had hundreds of thousands of small dollar donors that over the years they grew up from small dollar acquisition. But they knew that was hurting them. And so they wanted us to analyze their current mid-major program and see what the potential was. So we did that. And so we looked at 1,000 plus cum in any one of these years from 2017 to full year of 2020, there were 7,000 donors in this group. So they went from 7.3 million to 10.5 million over that time period. So that's a 44% growth. So that's good growth, right? But they knew that they didn't really have a strong program. They were happy they grew, but they weren't really trying. So then we broke it down by individuals, organizations, and foundations. And I want to focus mainly here on the individuals. But you can see the individuals in 2017 that had 1,000 cum was 5.7 million. Those same donors by 2020 were giving 3.9, or we lost 32% of their value from 2017 to 2020. The donors in 2018 that hit that 1,000 cum mark, that was 2.4 million. Those same donors by 2020 were giving 1.4, or we lost 43% of their value. And then you can see the class of 2019, 3.7 million. The next year, 1.4. So we lost 38% of their value. All told, from individuals, they lost $3.8 million from value attrition. Then when you add in organizations and foundations, the total loss in value over that time period was 4.1 million. Now remember, they grew 44%, but they lost 4.1 million. That was a bit of a surprise, but they also knew that they haven't been actually treating their donors well over that time period. So while it was a surprise, it didn't shock them that this was the case. All right, going over here. Let's go to next, pipeline analysis. Okay. Now, remember I was talking to you about this pipeline analysis where we're looking at by cum levels, and there are clogs in that donor, the pipeline into major gifts. And you can see overall, look, 530,000 donors giving almost $49 million. So a big organization, but look where most of the revenue is coming from in the donors. They have all these donors giving in the small dollar area, under $1,000. The majority of their revenue is coming from these donors. And you can even see there's clogs within their own system. So there are some direct response strategies they need to tap into. But this is where we're focused, at the 1,000 to 4,999 and above. So they have 4,000 donors here in 2020 that gave $6.8 million, basically. And just the next level down, only 175 donors at $1 million. And then next level, 82, then 12, then hardly any at really high levels at all. So they basically did not have a major gift program. They had no mid-level program at all. And you can tell this was an area, this is a huge clog, and they identified we need a mid-level program. So we looked at further analysis. And let's see if we can get there. I wanted to get to the anyway. Okay, let's get to the forecast. I can do that. And I can't see it, so the forecast is not there. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to show you was the forecast. So we do a 5-year revenue forecast. And we were able to show that if you have a disciplined program over the next 5 years, you will see tremendous results than what you're currently on trajectory to do. And so over the next 5 years, if they had a disciplined mid and major gift program, they would be able to bring in an added $40 million in revenue. So that's significant. And that's what we see in the analysis that we do every time. So now let's go back into the PowerPoint. So again, the goal here is to create a fundraising system and strategy that really helps the donor give to their capacity. That's what it's all about. So you need to ask yourself, are you looking at year-over-year growth of your existing donors? Are you doing that? Are you tracking these donors year over year? Are you accounting for the impact of that new money on your overall revenue? And what is the rate of promotion to major gifts? How many of you know how many donors from mid-level, what percentage of your mid-level area is moving into major gifts every year? You should know that number. So when we analyze the data from hundreds of nonprofits, on average, 0.2 to 1% of donors without a major gift program or a mid-level program, moves up into major gifts. So it's not a lot. If you have a robust mid-level program, we see that go from 3 to 4% of donors into mid-level or major gifts. That's a huge difference. So having that understanding of how many donors are moving into major gifts is really important for you to know. And are you evaluating your donor attrition and donor value attrition? Now, that pipeline analysis that I showed you on the CUME levels, you can do this yourself. You can go into your database and select any donor who's given $1 or more in any one of the last 4 calendar years or year to date. And for each donor, export the following things: your donor count, the cumulative giving totals, and the average gift amounts. And then you put them on a chart that looks like this. This is the same chart. I just pulled it out of that presentation that we saw earlier, where you can see, the big gaps here. There, you can see that there's clogs all along this pipeline. But where we're focused is that 1,000 to 4,999 and above. And you can see a lot of donors here relatively to the next level of 175 donors. And so this is something you want to know. You want to see where there are clogs so that you can address them with strategy to unclog them. So a healthy mid, major, and planned giving program happens when you have a functioning new donor acquisition program, cultivation, mid-level, and major gift. All of those need to be in place to have a fully functioning major gift pipeline. And this is what a healthy organization looks like. Everyone at the organization sees the donor as a partner. Remember when we're talking about mission? You see your donor as part of your mission. Gift officers seek out and learn the donor's passions and interests authentically. The system has been created to allow the donor to reach their full potential. So you don't have barriers. Or if you have barriers, you address those barriers. And you're always looking at, every year, are there any barriers that we're putting up that prevent donors from giving to their heart's content? And is the organization and gift officers, are they promptly reporting back the impact of a donor's gift? This is what healthy organizations are doing. Now, the data assessment, the 3 big things that I was talking about: senior donor value attrition rates, your donor attrition, the donor pipeline, the forecasts. These other things that happen with the donor assessment that you can see is by fundraiser, what's their performance look like? You can look at all kinds of ways to look at that with a good data assessment. So it's really important that you look at your data this way and not just looking at bottom line numbers. Now, we do this for free at Veritus. And you might, well, why are you guys doing this for free? 2 reasons. First reason is we want every nonprofit to get good information about their donors. Every nonprofit should be able to look at their file and look at the behavior of their donors over time. And if you're not doing that, you need to be able to do that. You can't just look at it by campaign or by year, 1 year, and then try to go do it on another year. You need to look at how donors are migrating. So getting good information, we want you to have that. The other is it allows us at Veritus to show you in a presentation what's going on with your donor file, where there's areas of opportunity, where you could be in the next 5 years. How many major gift officers and mid-level officers do you need? And what drives that is the data. The data will tell us all of those answers. So that's why we do it for free. And there's no obligation to work with us, but we want you to get that information and gives us the opportunity to show you what's there. Now, you could do this yourself, but we can do this also. And all we require is a simple data pull. We don't want to know the donors' names or anything like that. So we don't want to know any confidential information. And this is what you get. You'll get an analysis of your donor value attrition over the next 5 years, a breakdown of donor value attrition for individuals and organizations, a 5-year revenue projection for mid-level and major gifts, a CLOGS report to identify where donors are not moving through the pipeline, and recommendations on the number of MGOs and MLOs your data supports. I can tell you from doing over 1,000 of these data assessments over the last almost 20 years. Every time we've presented this data, the nonprofit learns something new about their donor base that they didn't know. So at the very least, you're going to get some great information about your donors that you didn't know. And if you want to try if you'd like to get the donor assessment, use the QR code, get signed up and start the process. But Amy, this is a great time now to move into question and answer time.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. And we do have several really good questions
All right.
that have come in. So let me take them in order.
All right.
Okay, this is from Bob, who says, earlier when Jeff talked about organizations not knowing why someone gave 1 year but didn't the 2 years following, how can organizations know why they didn't give when you outreach to them by phone and email and they don't respond to any kinds of outreach? Any suggestions on how to have donors respond to outreach?
Yes. So first of all, to get donors to respond means you also, so in a portfolio of 150 donors, because that's where I set it. When I'm looking at those 150 donors and the organization didn't know why the donor stopped giving, it's clear that they never went through a process to qualify their donors in the first place. So the first step in creating any portfolio is that you need to make sure the donors in that portfolio actually want a relationship with you. So that's a given. In every portfolio of a major gift officer that we work with, those donors are qualified, meaning they've said, yes, I want two-way communication with you. So that's number one. So now you have a full portfolio of 150 donors that want a relationship with you. You should be able to, because you now have a plan and a revenue goal for every donor, you will know if a donor can't make their goal of a $50,000 gift that year. As a major gift officer, you should know why. Because if you've worked your plan, that's one thing. If you didn't work your plan, that could be a reason why. But aside from that, you should know, well, the donor, their business went downhill and they needed to cut back this year, or something else outside of the control of the major gift officer happened that was the reason the donor couldn't give. So in every portfolio, if you're a really good frontline fundraiser, you will know why a donor gives more, why a donor gives the same, or gives less than you thought they would at the end of the year.
Okay, great. Another question is, this person asks and says, I agree that reporting back is important. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite way to structure an annual giving statement? Strictly a thank you, a response envelope, a letter with an ask? Traditionally, a thank you should never also be solicitation, but annual giving statements are sometimes an exception. Best practice advice.
Depends how large you are. So before I was, we started Veritus, I was working for a direct response agency for 12 years, and direct response, and we worked with very large organizations. And in very large organizations, we would put another ask in the thank you. And over the course of the year, that became 10% of their total revenue came from gifts that were tied to a thank you letter. Now, in smaller organizations, I probably would not recommend that, especially from major gifts. For somebody who's giving $25, yes. But somebody who's giving a major gift, you want to first thank them properly and promptly. So somebody's giving you a $20,000 gift, you want to make sure that you're not only thanking them quickly, but that appropriately. Like maybe your executive director needs to call them or a board member. So that's done well. And then you'll want to be able to report back on that specific gift. But for your annual program, and you're kind of a small organization, I probably would not put another gift ask in a thank you letter. Just thank them. And then overall reporting back on impact. Do you have a newsletter that you have? Make sure you have a part of that newsletter that's, hey, this is what your gifts are doing section. And then having maybe an annual report. It doesn't have to be all four color and everything and all nice, but it is reporting back on what you've done with the donor's gifts.
Okay, great. This question refers to the donor assessment and some things about that. Actually,
Okay.
So this person asks, how are multi-year grants taken into account in this type of data analysis?
So we'll look at cash in the door versus pledged. So I know there's some organizations that will, in their database, let's say somebody does a $300,000 gift over 3 years, they'll put in the database that in the first year it's 300,000, and then it looks like the next year they didn't give over the next 2 years. Well, what we do in that case is we have a discovery document that goes along with our data request to fess out any of that kind of information. Have you had a campaign recently? We'll ask that. And in that campaign, how do you book gifts? So that it doesn't look like there's skewing going on with value attrition, because how it just depends on how the organization books a gift. But we'll take that into account when we do our analysis.
Okay, thank you. Another good question here. How do we communicate about planned giving with major donors? Guess through your major gift team, perhaps.
Yeah. So we deal a lot with this because we have a lot of major gift officers that are also, they have goals around how many planned giving gifts they can close as well. And so it's knowing the donors, really, first and foremost. If you've got a good relationship with your donors, you can easily have this conversation, especially if they're donors that have been with your organization a long time. And that is the number one indicator for, is someone ready to give a planned gift? Is, have they been on your file for 15 or more years, giving consistently? Those kind of donors, and that's where you can start having the conversation along with, doing a gift for the organization, then having the discussion around their legacy and what would they like to do with their legacy, and giving them options and being able to have that conversation.
And Jeff, just to add on to that, I know we talk about how important mid-level is
Yeah.
in terms of ferreting out good
Yes.
planned giving. Can you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, because there's a lot of the mid-level donors, even though they're not giving major gift levels, they've probably been on your file for a long time. And again, I go back to how long have they been. It doesn't matter actually how much they've given. It's that they've been consistent in their giving over a long period of time, because that tells you something, right? It tells you that they're committed to your mission. And while they may not be giving huge gifts to your organization, that doesn't mean that they don't have an estate that they could help give larger gifts after they pass. So We often train our mid-level officers to listen for cues with the donor about introducing them to making some kind of a planned gift.
Mhm. Okay, well, here's one. This person asks, I have a friend who runs a nonprofit that is stationed here in Canada, but the work they do is in Sierra Leone. Would
Okay.
anyone have ideas for how best to share the impact to donors in Canada so they can really know they are making a difference? This
Yeah.
person already does videos, emails, Rails reports, etc., and is doing a thank you campaign now, but it just seems like there's attrition. Like she's not able to make the kind of headway that she would have hoped. Do you have any
Well, it
other?
sounds like you're doing the right things. I mean, it should be fairly easy if you have the program staff that is in Sierra Leone, um, really understanding what kind of information you're going to need for your donors. So if you have that, if you're getting good information about how the gifts that they're making are making an impact in Sierra Leone and you're doing it through video, you've got stats, you've got stories of what's happening, those are the things that you need to report back to those donors. It sounds like you're doing that. So if you're doing that well, that's great. Then I would look at other things on why you're not able to retain these donors. How are you serving these donors? Um, I would ask all kind. We would look at the data and we get a clue for what's going on.
Just a couple more. And there's a little bit room left, I think. If you guys want to add any more on now, we could take a few more. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. But one person asks, how do we know if our major gift thresholds are set properly or too high or too low?
Yeah.
Feeling
Well,
they're too high.
yeah, doing the data assessment will tell us that answer. So that pipeline we were talking about, so you will be able to see that pipeline and you'll be able to say, okay, yep, that maybe it's 500 to 99, 999.99 is your mid-level and $1,000 and above is major gifts. Or maybe you have so many donors that 10,000 and above is a major gift. Or sometimes we see 50,000 and above as a major gift. It really depends on your database. But your donors will tell you, your database will tell you what your mid-level and your major gift is. A lot of times when we do the assessment, and Amy can attest to this, that the organization will say, well, our major gift program is 10,000 and above. But then when we look at the data, they have like 10 donors in the 10,000 above.
Happens.
And
Yeah.
they're like, okay, that's not true. And so we got to really look at it. And then we really find out that it's really 1,000 and above. But the data doesn't lie. The data will tell us what your mid and major gift level should be.
Yeah. Okay, one more here, and that may be it for today. We'll see. I don't see any fresh ones. Okay. So this person says, as an MDO, I'm charged with prospecting for new donors
Uh,
as part of my overall job. I need to convince leadership that it's seriously affecting my ability to fully steward existing donors.
yes,
Can you give me some talking points to share with my manager and leadership around this issue?
yes. You, first of all, go and look at our resources on our website.
Mm,
Go to our website. We have a resource page, and there's a number of white papers, and there's a white paper there for you on how to do this. But I will say this: having the data will show them why you need to focus on your current donors that you have, rather than going out trying to find new donors. This is one of the number one problems with major gift programs, is that managers and CEOs of nonprofits confuse cultivating their current donor base and thinking that they've got to go outside of their donors to find that wealthy person that can give you a bunch of money. That is a losing proposition. And I can tell you that from all the years of experience of looking at databases and seeing how major gift officers work and what makes them successful and what makes them fail. And almost every time, if you are a major gift officer and you're tasked with cultivating your current portfolio and also having to go out and find new donors, you will not take care of the donors that you are with, and you'll see high value attrition going on. It's important to know that your major gifts are the donors that are already with you. Those are the donors that you want to focus on. You have major donors in your database right now that you're not cultivating correctly because you're not spending the time you need with them. It's not going out to find new people. Have someone else do that. Let the executive director, that's their job, or put somebody else on new donor major gift acquisition. Do not put your major gift team on it. And so many leaders make this mistake. Just focus on your current donors, because these are the donors that have already raised their hand and said, I love your mission. Those are the donors you want to get to know. Those are the donors you want to have a relationship with. Not the donor that's, at the Rotary Club that maybe has a bunch of money, but you have no idea if they care about your mission. So focus there.
Great. Well, I think that's it for
All right.
the questions. So thank you all so much. Thank you for being with us here today for this presentation. A quick reminder, via email tomorrow, you'll receive the webinar link and the slide deck that Jeff went over today. And just wanted to share personally, I would be very, very interested in talking with any of you about this donor assessment more. You can reach out to me via the link that's shown here, or directly to me at achapman@veritusgroup.com. It's there again. And I'd be very, very happy to walk you through the whole process, and I'd love to learn more about your situation.
Awesome.
So thanks again. And from all of us here at Veritus, take care.
See you.